We were talking about fraud, and we were talking about a woman from Naples, Florida, who had mailed her checks to pay her bills. And then when they cleared the bank and she was looking on her online banking, she noticed that they were for the wrong amount and for the wrong payees. So she found out that the thief had actually laundered, like physically laundered those paper checks with a chemical that removed the ink, but not the basic check information. So they were able to use those same checks, rewrite them for whatever amount they wanted to. And I believe in this particular story, they got about $10,000. So that's not a business story, but it really does bring up a good fraud point. Chemicals as in chemicals available at the grocery store, or you have to be a chemist. You know, I honestly, it did not say in the article where the chemicals came from, but I would imagine that a very quick, it was Drano. Do you know that for sure? Jamie? Okay, she's kidding. All right. I'm telling you what though, you could probably Google it in about 5 minutes and know what chemical you needed to use and make a bomb, but we won't go there. So anyway, it begs the question about whether or not paper checks are safe. And I know for a fact there's someone watching, I'm like stuck on the washing, that is a big proponent of electronic payments. And so I guess this is just one example of how paper checks can really be used to perpetrate a fraud, you know, against anybody, whether it's a company or a person. Jamie always says, you know, with the paper checks, you know, you're broadcasting your account number and your routing number to the world. Anybody that can see that check can get that information. And we all know pretty much how easy it is to do something online as long as you have those two pieces of information. So, you know, in the realm of fraud, probably a good idea to start, you know, considering electronic payments if you or your clients are still using paper checks. So that was really the story that I wanted to tell. So a couple things. I'm gonna look at the comments, and then I wanted to see if anybody wanted to offer up a fraud story. And I think I might actually, which would be really cool, be able to switch the presenter. But first, let me check the comments. So yeah, have the Fed come after you for Googling what chemicals do you need to wash a check? Right. I know, or I see that's all the time on those crime shows. Well, we were checking out their computer and this is what they were searching for. We told a client to pay employees who don't have bank accounts by using check cards instead of paper checks. They didn't, and someone did what sounds like this with check washing. So yeah, you can get those check cards. They're like debit cards, and you can use those to actually direct deposit. They come with an account number and a routing number, so your employee can get that and then provide that account number and routing number to you in order to give them direct deposit if they don't have a bank account. So thank you for those comments, Jamie. And right now, does anybody have a fraud story that they would like to share? If you want to put it in the comments, go ahead and do that. And then I will promote you. I can click the attendee's name and promote to panelist. And then you can choose. So I can promote you to panelist, so you can choose whether or not you want to share your video. Danielle, you can do bill pay and have the bank mail the check. That's a good point too, because I've done that with my own bill pay. If somebody's not in there for electronic, the bank just mails it to them. But then now that I think about it, Danielle, when the bank mails them that bill pay check, is that my account number and routing number that are on the bottom of that check, or is that a different account number and routing number? I never really paid attention. It's the client's account number and routing number. Right, yeah, that's kind of what I figured. So, I think this check washing thing might have been particular to eliminating, ink, like ballpoint ink from the check, but who knows if it's coming from their bank account. There was another story related to this. For anyone that still has time for another story, is I had heard, and I didn't experience this firsthand, where a bookkeeper, what they did was they took Scotch tape, you know, that clear kind that's kind of a little bit matty finish and that you can write on, and they put that over top of the payee, the blank payee line on the checks. And then when they ran the checks through the printer, it printed onto that tape instead of the check. Then they peeled the tape off and typed their own name in there. And so that was crazy and actually amazingly easy to do. So, you know, of course, somebody's got to be fraud-minded, but, you know, as we talked, I believe, on one of the previous coffee chats. Thanks, Joe. Yes, exactly, the altered payee scheme. As we had talked on one of the previous coffee chats, was sometimes even the most honest people, given just that right set of circumstances that puts them in a bad situation, you know, can do bad things. You know, good people do bad things all the time. So just because people are nice and honest and kind doesn't mean that they're not going to do it. Jamie, can you believe that some banks don't send out images of canceled checks with their statements? I didn't know that because I just figured that was standard practice at this point. You know, it took my bank a while. We deal with a local bank here, and it took them a while to get to the point of, you know, providing some of the bells and whistles that some of the larger banks were. But now I think we're caught up. So, okay. Does anybody have any other comments or last chance? Last chance for somebody to become a celebrity, because this is going up on Facebook and YouTube. Jamie's always up for it. I knew you were. Okay, so if you guys want to stick around for a second, I want to promote Jamie. Participants, Jamie.
Hello.
Did you promote yourself?
No, in fact, I couldn't unpromote myself, so I've just been muting myself to this point.
Oh, awesome. Well, welcome to the Accountant's Coffee House, Jamie.
Thank you so much. I unfortunately just have tea here. It's a mix of green tea, chai tea, and a splash of almond milk, but...
Wow, that is amazing. Cheers.
Cheers.
So what's your story?
Okay, so very apropos with check washing, which frankly, I feel like an idiot saying this, but I was never really clear on what exactly money laundering was. Now I get it. So, what happened was we had a client with about 250 or 300 employees or so, and we were their accounting department year-round. And we noticed that a lot of their employees were paid with a paper check. So we strongly recommended that they move everyone to direct deposit. But this company, their number one priority is their team and their employees. And this is very important to them because in their industry, employee turnover is legendary. It's so high, and that's so costly to their industry that this company made their strategy be employee retention. They stand for their employees. They're committed to their employees first, above everybody. And so when I told the CEO, we really need to get everybody on direct deposit, he said, absolutely not. We can't do that. A lot of our employees don't have bank accounts, and we really need to make sure that they get paid and that they don't have to incur fees or inconveniences in any way by taking a paper check and using a check cashing service. We just want to make sure that they get their money in the way that they need that. And I said, I got that. But you have to remember your account and routing number are appearing on every check that goes out. And it's not about your employees. It's whoever else sees the check between the time that the employee gets it and when it's deposited. I mean, their employees got background checks, but not everybody else in the employees' lives. And it was about 3 months after we started working together all of a sudden checks started showing up in the bank account. Now, we all spotted it within 12 hours. But first there was a check for a small amount, and then there was a check for a larger amount. And not only was the payee changed, but whoever did this washed the company's name.
Oh, wow.
From the check and put in an entirely different company as if it were being paid out of a different account with our client's account and routing number. And I say this regarding the employees because all the vendors were paid electronically by this point, because that's one of the first things we do when we start working with an organization. So, and I feel terribly about this because we offered them an option of using check cards, those check cards that you were talking about before. And we brought in a company like a representative who described it doesn't cost the employer, it doesn't cost the employee. They make their spread when their employee takes the debit card to like the grocery store, and the grocery store pays the merchant service fees, and they get a piece. So it doesn't cost anybody anything, but our client said no, and they suffered a great deal because first of all, the bank wouldn't immediately give them their money back. And other checks that were leaving the account started to bounce.
Oh, wow.
And the bank said, oh, well, we have to put this through our fraud department and it could take 2 to 3 weeks. What? So first of all, other disbursements were bouncing. The CEO of a $7 million company, instead of leading the way, was now stuck dealing with a bank matter. And on my advice, he closed the account because this kept happening. I said, you need to close the account right away because first, the bank is being so problematic. He closed the account. He said, I don't want to close the account. It'll cause too many issues. I said, I got that, but that's my advice. Next day, more fraudulent checks cleared. He said, okay, I'll close the account. He moved into a different account. But as a ripple effect, the special privileges that his company had as a long-standing account holder were completely wiped and reset because he had to open a new account. And there was nothing the bank could do about it. All the privileges, they were, for example, overdraft fees were all waived. And this was a company that always ran very close to zero. Overdraft fees were no longer waived in the new account. And where this ended up for me was a very concentrated launch of studying influence. How, if I had been a more effective influencer, could we have prevented this? And the ripple effects, the financial ripple effects continued for the better part of a year.
Wow, that is horrible.
Yeah.
Jeez. And it's amazing all the different effects that you don't even think about, like you were just mentioning.
Yeah.
That happen.
Yeah, and I mean, unfortunately, this isn't the only story that's, that happened. And, I know it's not our fault that we didn't commit the crime, but it just has me, how can we as accounting professionals be more influential? How can we speak the language that lands with our clients and have them recognize the risks and put controls in place to prevent things like this from happening?
Mm-hmm.
So I continue to study influence, the language of influence and techniques of influence to be more effective in using our knowledge for good.
Right. That brings up a good point. That might be a good topic for another chat too. Influence. I'm going to have to write that down. So, hey, thank you very much for coming on. I appreciate it.